There is a quite long time ago that people start raising the question whether antidepressants actually work. Since I'm coming from electrophysiology field as an engineer who is dealing with nonlinear analysis of data and with PhD in neuroscience, I was doubtful about whether a single neurotransmitter, whether it be a lack of or abundance of, can really change something as complex as mood disorder. And the more we know about physiology, the more we realize that it is much weirder than we ever thought. It is, of course, very interesting, but if you have to handle and solve some problem, analyze it, and when it comes to interpretation, you realize that it is very often not black and white. This is not clear-cut. This is not so easy to discern what is what, that you really have to apply scrutiny to your results. So, all this story was an intro to a study published by Dr. Turner and his colleagues. It was published on January 19 this year, and this is beautiful illustration of how the real information about general practice, public health, and approval of drugs is actually coming to us significant time lag. For example, Mr. Turner used to work with FDA as a psychiatrist who is a part of the team who were approved new drugs, and with other colleagues who are also having experience with FDA body, which is considered to be a gold standard with evaluating the results which are clinically useful so they can be marketed in US. It is very slippery slope what is really the case with clinical research, because any company which wants to market certain drug has to report in detail clinical phase 2 and 3 to the FDA. And if they approve that as feasible, meaning that in more than 50% of the cases, or sometimes more than 80% of the cases, the drug is effective, they're officially giving them a license to market and to sell the drug. And in case of antidepressants, Dr. Turner and Dr. Cipriani, with other colleagues, actually published a couple of years ago a large study which compares all the old antidepressant drugs which are marketed in the period before 2002. And they actually found that what we could read in publications are inflated in comparison to their real clinical results. How that can be? First of all, reporting to official agency like FDA is one thing, and publishing in scientific journals is completely another thing. But why that matters? Because people who are working with patients, GPs, specialists, people who are working on clinics, rely on accurate reporting about clinical results. Thus, they need to read the publications. And if reporting about certain clinical results is biased, the whole thing is snowballing to some really consequences, which you can see now. So, in the first publication from a couple of years ago, Dr. Turner and Dr. Cipriani actually find out that what companies who produced, marketed, and sell antidepressant drugs, which we can consider old antidepressants because there are many new drugs, scientists who actually reported on those clinical studies inflated the effects of antidepressants more than 10% in the literature, meaning that publications about that are very biased. In this article, Dr. Turner and his collaborators stated that valid assessment of drug efficacy and safety requires an evidence base free of reporting bias. They actually compared many publications which were following the FDA approval and found that published literature was inflated the apparent efficacy of antidepressant drugs. What they did is actually that they used medical and statistical reviews in FDA drug approval packages and identified 30 phase 2 or 3 double-blind placebo-controlled acute monotherapy trials involving 13,747 patients. They decided to have a look on the time frame on antidepressants approved between February 2008 and September 2013. And in previous work, when they actually dealt with older antidepressants, they actually examined 74 trials of 12 older antidepressant drugs approved between December 1987 to August 2002. By application of advanced statistical methods, they actually find out that in older drugs, reported was biased in 10%, meaning that they actually didn't publish some of the negative results. They published only 47 of real results, cherry picking among those which are going in favor of approval. Just to make things clear, this group of researchers actually take a look only on 4 newer antidepressant drugs, 2 of which were approved, 2 of which were not. But for me, it is shocking to find out that even something that is prescribed to so many people, causing so many side effects. You can find that, for example, one thing which we call bias now is that you're not reporting negative results, meaning that you're only deciding to publish something which is impressive, something which is positive, which is biased towards the positive side of research. If people would start publishing all the negative results, they will save a lot of time and money to all other researchers, not to mention affecting the health of people who are taking those drugs. But this is obviously not the case. I will just take one example. Among the 15 negative trials, 6 were unpublished, 2 others were misreported as positive, and 7 other negative trials, which is 47% only, were reported transparently as negative. Meaning that even when you compare with old drugs marketing and bias in reporting, which is 10%, newer drugs were obviously reported a little bit less biased. The transparency is increased, but again, this is the difference with what really happened in those labs. So I would also link in the description the publication and also the Standardly Good, this is documentary done by Deutsche Welle, between how was functioning the connection between producers of the drugs and FDA. So I hope this is just the start of going towards objective science and science which is reproducible, being done by just regular guys on the universities or someone who is working for the pharmacoindustry. Thank you for listening.